Yeah, so here is the other question that needs to be sorted out. It has to do with insulin and DKA. And of course, the question that was asked requires us to explain the role played by insulin in DKA or diabetic ketoacidosis. How does the lack of insulin lead to DKA or diabetic ketoacidosis? Now, there's something that is very important. First of all, we need to discuss the role played by insulin in our bodies, which is to help glucose enter the cells from the bloodstream. So lack of insulin technically leads to impaired glucose uptake. This is so because for glucose to move from the bloodstream into the cells, you definitely need insulin. So if there is no insulin, we expect impaired glucose uptake. So if glucose is not normally taken up by the cells, we are going to have blood glucose levels increasing. Now here we have a concern, which is hyperglycemia. So there is a concern here that is created, which is hyperglycemia, but we're not going to talk much about that. Now, if the cells are deprived of this glucose because of impaired glucose uptake, there will be an urgent need for alternative source of energy. This glucose is what is broken down by the cells to produce the currency, the energy that the body needs to use. But because the glucose is not being taken up by the cells, there is need for an alternative source of energy. And at this point, the body initiates different pathways that have to do with alternative ways of producing glucose, glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis, all those processes. But here we're interested in a pathway that will easily lead us to diabetic ketoacidosis. And here there's a quick mention of beta oxidation, which is initiated. And of course, here again, you have to note that from beta oxidation, there is acetyl-CoA molecules that are produced. So beta oxidation is initiated because there's a desperate need for production of energy. Now from beta oxidation, we get acetyl-CoA, and this acetyl-CoA in the hepatic cells leads to the production of ketone bodies, which in excess will lead to DKA. So when we are discussing this question to do with insulin and DKA, you have to explain systematically why insulin is important, what happens in the absence of insulin, impaired glucose uptake. So if there is impaired glucose uptake, it means that blood glucose levels will increase because the glucose is not entering the cells. So if the glucose is not entering the cells, there is a need, there is a shortage of glucose, meaning that the cells are deprived of glucose. And because the cells are deprived of glucose, they need to survive. The cells need the energy, and that's where the need for alternative source of energy production comes in. And of course, there are a number of pathways that are initiated during this survival period. But of course, we are focusing on beta oxidation because it produces the acetyl-CoA that is used to build up ketone bodies, acetone, acetoacetate, and hydroxybutyrate, which, if produced in excess, will lead to ketoacidosis, which in this case eventually becomes diabetic ketoacidosis. So if there are any questions around this aspect, please, you can leave your questions in the comment section and then we'll address them in the next clinic.